back. Thank you all so much for sticking around. I'd like to reintroduce Director Andy Vallentine. Please come on up here. And Andy, I know you got a lot more people here. Please introduce everybody that's coming on.
Yeah, everybody just come on up. This is Danny, my husband, the writer. Chloe is Sonia. I'm Pablo, the producer. Colleen is Sarah. Mike, one of our producers. Bolin, our casting director, and one of our producers. And Jake, one of our producers. Thank you.
Thank you all so much again for being here and hosting your premiere here at the Seattle International Film Festival. Such a beautiful film. You all like incredible work, and we're just so appreciative that you're able to have you here with us. I'd love to have you start out. I mean, you've explained to us a little bit in the introduction that this is a very personal, true story. At what point did you two decide that you wanted to turn your real life situation into a film?
I'll let you that. So it's based on, I would say, it was born out of conversations that we had, and after we got married, we started thinking about what the next step would be, and I think I was more eager to explore fatherhood, and Andy was not. That was something that he had thought about. And I think, for me, writing is a way of exploring questions that I don't know the answer to, and so I think I just started writing to see how it would turn out. And I think, along the way you take things that happen like subsequently and add them into the script and make the story happen. So, yeah.
On putting your life on screen like this is somewhat vulnerable. I mean, I'm just curious, like, how did it feel sharing your story with an audience for the first time tonight?
It felt great. Nervous and frightening, and yeah, it definitely felt vulnerable.
Yeah, I'm sweating a ton.
And especially just in the fact that it's just like such a personal film, and we relate even more to the movie now than what we did before, right? Because we, made this movie and we were in the process of having a child, and then we got done with production, and then 4 weeks later, like, our daughter was born. And so during the post-production process, I had like a totally different perspective on the movie because I had a daughter at that point, so I could identify a little bit more with, Thomas throughout.
And for our actors and our producers here, what drew you to the material when you read the script? Like, what was it that you said, like, I need to be a part of this?
Well, it was a really beautiful read. Just getting it in the mail and reading it was like, this is beautiful. And then getting to meet Danny and Andy and the team. We had this amazing chemistry read, which was a very long process, and you guys had, options for different couples, and I had to read with 3 different people. It was like an hour and 30-minute thing, and on a Zoom. So I was in Palermo in Italy, and they were in the States, and I remember, we did one after the other, and then when Nico came up, it was just like, that's it. I think I got the job, because it was just so powerful, and just to know and to see how much it meant to you and how much you were giving into this one Zoom session. I mean, I saw it all in the Zoom session, so I remember thinking then, I was like, I hope I do this, because this is really beautiful. So thank you for allowing me to do it, and poking fun at something that happens to a lot of actors, which is, if you're gay and if you were born in the late 70s, early 80s, and you started being an actor in the 2000s, it wasn't so cool to be gay. So to be able to say that and to tell that story is cool, because it happened to me. So I felt like I also put a little bit of me on that story. So thanks.
I'll jump into, when I read the script, I was not in Palermo, Italy. I was in the kitchen, and no less, but I remember reading it, and I didn't know that this is, look, here I'm gonna cry, and I have on lashes, let's not do that, but, I remember reading the script before I even knew that it was your life, and it was like, I have to do this project. Also, it's so, to get to see a character like Sonia, played by somebody like me, it's, what a different voice to brown queerness, brown female identifying queerness, and it's not necessarily something that you always get to see. And so it's just, what a gift to be here. And look what you did, look what we, anyway.
My best friend and his husband are adopted fathers of 4 times foster dads. And when the children have been seen in the pride with their parents, I've had to try really hard to wrap my mind around the idea that it's better for them to go back because they had such a loving home with Michael and Tony. So I've had to look at the other side of their point of view a lot before I read the script. I got the audition on my 40th birthday. And there's always been this idea that 40 women in Hollywood sort of like much faster. And I thought, well, if this is happening at my 40th, I get to produce once. So I was not supposed to say this, but I was desperate to be in the film. Just to hide that. But I really want to play Arthur's mom, and I think we're all like the villain in someone's story. So to present a loving, strong mom who's trying to do the best and trying to get back a little bit to her husband and her son was wonderful. So much happy.
Any of the producers and me, anything they'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, this script came to me. I've worked with Andy for 7 years now, a long time. And when he told me his husband wrote a script, and I read it years ago. I don't know how many years ago now. I just thought it was absolutely beautiful. And I think what's interesting too is, Andy told this story about how there's different iterations of that story, and he has a daughter now, and I've we were in. There's different iteration for me as well. As when I was reading, when I read the first draft, my wife and I weren't even talking about children, and then we started having a conversation. And I think around when we were in production, I had a daughter at the time, and it's just it really resonates with anybody who's ever thought about being a parent. And it's just really it's a beautiful story that I think resonates with a broader audience, which is fantastic.
I knew when I first read it that I wanted to be part of it, and certainly after meeting Andy, that sealed the deal for me. And then, they offered me to come on as casting director and also gave me my first producing credit, which, I knew that it was a story that I wanted to share, that I wanted to try to, get the best actors and honor the characters that they were, and I knew that I would be able to, basically my job is to sell it to agents and managers and try to get their talent, on board. And I knew that I could, after meeting them, that I understood the story because it was so universal. It's about a couple in a committed relationship that are going through the whole decision about whether to have kids or not, and how when one doesn't want to have kids, how polarizing that can be in the relationship. And I've been doing this a long time. I've been on a lot of sets, and I've never ever experienced a shared experience with firstly the whole cast as to what it meant to them reading the script and what those themes meant, and how many of them it mirrored what they were going through in their own lives about what it meant to start a family, difficulty starting a family. So, it was just it was a great experience.
I want to applaud
applaud you all. It's like such an incredible ensemble cast that you've put together. Andy, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about working with such a large ensemble cast, especially for your directorial debut, working with so many people that we're all familiar with on screen, and what that was like for you.
It was terrifying. It was very intimidating. Everybody was like coming from these incredible shows, and we had been familiar with them. And you know, the fact that each of the actors brought something to the script, they all had some sort of like personal backstory of why it was important to be a part of Mattachine Family. And I felt like, you know, to do an indie of this level, you really have to be passionate about the story. You know, nobody's making bank to do this. This isn't like a payday for HBO. This is like, we want to tell this story to get it out there because stories like this, you know, traditionally haven't been told. So the fact that, you know, so many incredibly talented actors, you know, including the three here tonight that, you know, participated, you know, I'm forever grateful, and I feel like you all three of you brought so much to the project, and I love you for it.
Well, I'd love to open it up to the audience. Don't be shy. I'd love to hear some questions from you all. I could certainly ask questions all night long, but it's also dark, so if you move your hand around a little bit, you guys, I know you're not feeling that shy. I know it's the first night of the festival, but all right, well, okay, I'm gonna turn it back to the producers while they think of some questions, because I feel like you alluded to this in your introduction as well, that this was like a long process in getting this film made. Like, can you guys talk about some of the challenges and like what this process was like in getting the film to where it is now?
Sure. It started, you know, many years ago of the first draft, and Danny and I working on it together for X amount of time, and then in Hollywood, it's like you kind of submit the draft to these people, these decision makers, and you know, you try to get somebody interested. And I think it took quite some time, you know, for us to finally find somebody to partner with to be able to like bring this here. You know, this is like, the film is not you know, it's a drama, but it's not a massive, heavy drama. It's not like an overly comedic film. It's like in between. It's like more like real life. That's what we were interested in telling. You know, so you know, Mike and Scott, you know, were instrumental in at the beginning, like being able to put those pieces together, and then also being able to say that Zach Braff is our executive producer, you know, and he was able to come on board and help with our script. He offered incredible advice with the scripts, and kind of helped me along the way as like a mentor of like, this is how you do it, this is how you direct. So I appreciate that.
Anything anybody else would like to add down the line? Fair enough. Well, I also just have to know, you know, since the script is so based off of your own lives, like, are these supporting characters, Heather, Martin, Zaro, based on real people in your life?
Yes. There are, I would say, the four main friends are based off of like our four main friends, and so much so that when they saw like the first part of the movie, they were like, "Oh, that's like the thing with Sonia and Leah and the cough drops." That was like a story that one of our friends told, and I just was like, "That's a great story." That this like really sweet like motherly person, it becomes like a monster, and when she's half asleep, and our friend was like, "That's my story." I'm like, "Yes, I took it." But yeah, a lot of their personality traits. I mean, you incorporate things from your own life into the story because, again, when it's so personal. But I wanted to. I mean, our friends are our family as well, and so that's like part of it. I wanted to include them in this like really personal story. So it was important to me to bring parts of them into it as well.
Yes.
This is a question for the two of you. As you said, it's this really personal story, and you have this cast that you've chosen to enact this aspect, this telling of your life, right? What was a moment that surprised you when the cast kind of took off with your story
The question is, what was the moment when the cast took the story beyond what you had written?
I think that, you know, there's like a couple like pivotal arguments that Thomas and Oscar have. And it was very surreal to be directing those moments from your real life. You know, it obviously was emotional to be in the moment, you know, but also it's like, as a director, it's like a little bit of like, I'm like living out my dream, because I'm like, whoa, this is way better than what happened to us, you know? Like, the lighting is so much better in this moment, and there's the tear, and I got it, you know, like, I didn't have that, you know?
I would say the fight scenes as well were the most surprising, because I think you write them and they feel so personal, and then you're watching the actors work and they're bringing so much more to it, like you said, and you're like, whoa, this is good. And it no longer becomes something that was yours, it becomes something else, and I think that was really exciting to see happen in real life, in real time.
We got time for one more. It's out there. Yes, right here.
The film is beautiful, so first, thank you.
Thank you.
But kind of as you're discussing, right, so much of the film is so personal, and I think a lot of the best stories ever told are told because it's a first-hand experience. But how do you differentiate, or how do you find that boundary of what you're willing to put in your writing or willing to put in your film, and what you keep that's just yours?
The question is, how do you decide what from your personal life you put into your writing and what you create a boundary and don't include, or how you make that delineation?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is kind of what Andy alluded to, is the real life isn't always so compelling. And so it is really, when we say it's based on like our life, I mean, it's like the seed of it is like the conflicts or the conversations or the general arcs, but then to take away some of the, like, because it's so personal, to like kind of separate yourself from it, you do add elements to make it more compelling, more dramatic, more interesting. Like, you know, neither one of us is an actor, and I was like, what would be an interesting career? Former child star. I think that'd be a really interesting dimension to their relationship, and Oscar's character in particular. So I would say the story becomes kind of supreme. So you take what's personal and then you make it more interesting.
I think that, you know, they tell you for your first film, you know, if you're lucky enough to do it, because luck does play a big factor in this industry, is that you should try to make it as personable as possible, because you're able to speak, you know, you are the only person that could have made that, you know? So I think for me in directing, I put it all in. Like, I just put it all in, and then, you know, hopefully you all enjoyed it, I guess, and other people enjoyed it.
And on that note, we're out of time for our Q&A, but thank you all so much for being here and for sharing your film with us. If you have any final words?
I just want to thank the whole cast and the crew. I love you all dearly, and thank you for all coming up to Seattle. You were all incredible. Thank you all for coming. It was wild to be able to watch you all from the back, surprised. You know, I was like listening and hearing you laugh and sniff, and it was just like an incredible experience. And I appreciate you all coming out and supporting independent filmmaking. You know, this has been a challenge from the beginning, but stories like this, you know, I feel like need to be told. So thank you all so much. Thank you to my mom and dad from Michigan who are in the back. Thank you. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I'm sorry that we had to sit through that jerk-off scene. So sorry. Yeah, so thank you everybody.
Thank you all.